Good morning or good afternoon, it is already. Welcome to this week's edition of Greek the Week. And Jan came up with our topic for today, which is searching for the silver lining. She says that it's a good thing to look on the positive side, but does that really make us happier? And should we always look to the positive? Or, can we be doing a disservice to ourselves if we don't maybe look at some of the things that are negative and learn how to go through them even if they are negative, so that every trait we have can be taken to an extreme and that kind of finding that middle balance. So Jan, share with us what you're thinking.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mona, and welcome everybody. And this past week, I've spent a lot of time with family, and good times and sad times, but it was also good. My uncle passed away a couple months ago, and we had his memorial service last week. But it was great having the whole family together. He was 95. He lived a great, fulfilling life, and so the topic of looking at the positive or finding the good things came up several times as I was interacting with different family members. And one of the things that struck me was at the funeral, two of my cousins got up and gave glowing eulogies about my uncle, what a wonderful man he was, and all this kind of stuff. And then later at the reception, I was talking to one of my other cousins, their other sibling, and he was telling me, well, I didn't have such a positive thoughts about my dad as they did. and so we started talking about that, and I'm thinking, so, well, at the funeral, it's always better to bring out the good points and to remember those good times, because there are, no matter how troubling childhood was or how difficult it was growing up, there are always good points. There are always good things that happen, and it's nice to remember those good things and to talk about those good things, because usually it's the positive stuff that stays with us, but a lot of times that negative stuff stays with us too. We just can't shake it. And so, I'm thinking, it's probably best, it's an art, it's a talent to be able to find the positive, look for that silver lining in all the things that are going on. But then I was having a discussion with somebody else later on, talking about that being a good trait to be able to find the positive. And she looked at me and said, oh, no, but that can be taken to a fault. If you're constantly looking for the good things and ignoring the bad things, then you could be suppressing something very important and not dealing with some other things that are going on that probably should be dealt with, because it could be eating at you on the inside. You don't even realize it, and results in some behaviors that are not so positive. And so I just thought I'd throw it out there. We're going from one end to the other, saying yes, being able to look at the silver lining is a good thing, but then again, it can be a bad thing. But I think that goes with just about everything. We've talked about this a few times here, that you can take things to extremes, so that it does become not such a good thing.
Exactly. And I like to look at it, I'm going to kind of make some graphics here if you can kind of see it, that everything, let's go, east to west or whatever it is, from one border to one border, and then the highs that could go or the lows that could go. And looking at those and how going to either extreme, can be extreme.
Right.
And the more we look at bringing in the positives and the negative, to realize that, we all have flaws, we're both and to bringing down the highs and the lows, again, here to where we can handle them, to where we don't go to the, where we don't get out of bounds with either one. And I know I'm currently working with a client that has difficulty with a relationship, and a past relationship, a parent, which may be like your cousin.
My cousin, sure.
Yeah. And I know for myself personally, I look back on my life, there was a time that I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. And because of that, well, as I shared with this individual, the fact that whenever I got married, I married this wonderful guy, and turned out he had a lot of characteristics like my dad. And I was still, wounded by some of the things that my mom had done. And I began to realize that, I was becoming my mom. And that in the process of realizing I was becoming my mom, I began to realize that maybe some of her issues had to do with an ineffective relationship that she was having with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I had always held him as being, just the epitome. And then once I began to look at the maturity of it and see it from an adult position as to why I was becoming so angry with this wonderful guy that was so much like my dad, I could begin to see and understand my mother's frustration. And therefore, I began to release my feelings, my anger, my disparity toward my mom, and it just healed all the way around.
And that's great to be able to see that and to do that, because we end up getting aggravated and irritated at things, and we don't really understand where those emotions are coming from.
Right.
And it can be, really deep into things that happened well in our past that we're not even aware that happened.
And we don't really have to know. We don't really have to know where they come from.
Right.
I know I was attending a seminar one time, and this guy was talking about, he was looking at, what's his name, higher levels of, and getting to, who is it? Tell me what psychologist it is. As you climb up the mountain.
Maslow?
Well, anyway, no, I don't think, anyway, whatever it was. He was talking about this young man that would have success after success after success after success, that kept falling back down to the bottom rung. And finally, the young man, what his inward mantra was in everything was, if I don't do this, if I don't scrimp, if I don't this, if I don't that, we'll lose the farm. And sometimes we internalize these things that may have been said and may have some truth to them, but they're not an absolute truth. And whether we really recognize it or not, it's just that there's something there that's stuck. And I want to release it. I don't have to know what it is.
Right.
I just want to let it go.
Yeah.
And if sometime from someplace way down the road, we get an insight, as in I did one time, I was wondering, I have so many opportunities that I could really get the message out, to speak and to do all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, why don't I do it? Because when I do, it seems to be well received.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Jan, I had this insight. And it was me as a sassy kid to my mom, and her looking at me and saying, "Be quiet or I'll mash your mouth."
Oh, wow.
And you know what? That instant insight came, and it brought tears to my eyes. And I even cried. But you know what? I instantly took it and released it.
Yeah.
Because I was a smart aleck, don't tell me. And sometimes we have to get honest with those things.
Yeah. Well, I can remember times when I was to my parents, and, just doing what a teenager or a kid does. And until they brought it to my attention, I'm going, why am I acting this way? Why do I do this around them? And you just don't realize what how what you're saying is affecting the other people. And so it's kind of nice to have somebody to bring it to your attention. Though sometimes if they're real abrupt about it, it kind of catches you by surprise. But it does give you something to think about.
And now with that insight, even then, which was, years later, that healing began to come, that instead of, oh, me, and I mean, I had compassion for that child that was, that was spoken to harshly. But not only did I have compassion for her, me, I also had compassion for my mom because, you know, hurt people,
Right.
and whole people heal people. And as we become whole, not only do we heal ourselves, but then we have that opportunity to speak a word that maybe could help someone else begin to get unstuck and begin to come more middle ground as opposed to going to an extreme.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, and a lot of times when people are saying things that are hurtful, like you said, they're hurting themselves.
Uh-huh.
So to understand that, instead of taking it personally and becoming all agitated about it, to stop and say, hey, you know, what brought that on? It sounds like you've got something on your mind, or are you having some trouble with something? Let's talk about it.
And even if it's not with someone that you can actually talk about, you know, or whenever that thought comes to your mind, go there about dissing someone else, you know, whether it is someone on TV or a politician, or, you know, about what your cousin did or something. Instead of dissing them, begin to look at yourself and say, how is that diss hurting me?
Yeah.
And how can I release it and be more mature than, how can I grow beyond? How can I nurture me enough that I can grow beyond that stinging so much?
Yeah, we talk a lot about growing and looking at self-evaluating and seeing what we can do differently. And I remember I had quite a number of clients who turned to me and said, why do I have to do all the work? And but that's, Sharon is laughing there, because we've all heard that. You know, why am I the one that has to do all the work? And I'm going, well, do you want to improve this relationship or not? You know, how much is it? I mean, if it's not worth putting in the work, then maybe you should just walk away, because it does take work. It does take time to do things, and you cannot make somebody else do what you want them to do, but you can make life better for yourself, and learning how to do that.
Yeah, and sometimes in speaking it out, like to a counselor, or maybe even to a good friend, that you're speaking out what you're saying, how you're dissing that person.
Mm-hmm.
And if you actually will listen to yourself, you may get an, oh no.
Yeah, right. It sounds differently when I say it here.
Right.
In my head.
Because when you're saying it in your head, all of your ego is applauding, saying, yay, 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 yay.
Right. You go, girl.
You deserve better. And that can be one of the things that gets us in so much trouble, when we begin to think of, you know, what I'm entitled to and what I deserve and what I this and, you know, how cute I am and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That kind of feeds our ego, and in the process of that, it kind of keeps our connecting further and further apart.
Right. So going back to searching for that silver lining, it's like in every relationship, there are good points about it, but not to be blindsided by the not so good parts, so that you're not treated well, but to find you know what is positive about it. Do I really want to keep this relationship going, and you know, and how important is this to me?
Yeah. Now, whether it's a silver lining or whether it's the yellow brick road,
well,
sometimes the best way to find that yellow brick road of life is to start off on that dusty, dirty one.
Yeah.
And let yourself become so preoccupied with making the best of it. Doing what you can do, making the best of it, having some fun, challenging yourself, so that you actually stop paying attention to the dusty path.
Right.
So that we actually begin to look at the fact that, you know what, I don't have that silver lining, but what I have is enough.
Yeah.
It's enough. It's enough. Until one day, then not so long from now, whenever we begin to do that, you know, we begin to find new people. We need to find new insights. We need to begin to feel kind of awesome, that I'm so glad I didn't diss someone when I really could have. And we're just a little teeny bit taller than we were. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, look, this old dusty road's turning to gold. Or that lining it's not the darkness that I thought it was. And you wonder for a long time, and you begin to think about it, and you think, well, when did this happen? I know I had a client one time told me, said, you kept coming to my classes, kept coming to the classes. And she said, you know, I'm changing. I have changed, but I don't know when it happened.
Yeah. Because it's a gradual change. You don't really realize you're starting to go down that yellow road and starting to make some changes. But I think like the important thing is that you are doing things. You are trying different things, trying different ways to say things, to do things, instead of just sitting back and saying, poor me, this is so terrible what's happening to me. That you are going down some path, whether it's the dusty road or the yellow one, that you're at least doing something about it, because just doing something about it helps to take your mind off of the negative and focusing on, you know, where I'm going, what do I want, what would I like this relationship to be?
And here's the beauty, is that one day, all of the gold in the world, all the silver in the lining, will not even appeal to you as much as having just one day of being who you really are and being true. Even though you may have to do something that helps to connect when another one is not connecting. It's becoming okay with who you are.
Yeah, that's a big one, being okay with who you are. Because I can remember when I was young wanting approval from people, not being secure in who I was, and looking around to make sure I was doing the right thing and I was getting the nods and, to move forward. But then eventually you go, but this isn't me. I'm doing this stuff, and it's not fun to be good all the time, though. You know, though you want to be. Every once in a while, you just got to say that thing. You got to do that one thing, and to know that it's okay, and you learn from it. And sometimes you just have to.
Yeah.
To be okay with it, and knowing that you might get a few people that are upset with you, but how do you feel about yourself? Do you feel good about having done it? And,
right. While always remembering that, you know, we have the shadow side inside us.
Right.
We're a combination of both. And sometimes you think, you know, well, there's the shadow side and the light side, there's the positive side and the negative side. And it really takes both of those to form us and shape us into being a honest, productive individual.
Mm-hmm.
It takes both. It takes both the positive and the negative. And you know, if you ever wonder, well, you know, in the one is a little bit of everything, and in the whole is all the different ones, all the different things, all the different everythings. It's all together. And it's a law, whether it's the law of gravity or the law of rotation or any of the laws. It's a law, and it works within us too. And you think, well, it doesn't really. I'm an individual. But think about all those times you give yourself different conflicting information. You know, well, I could just do this. Nobody'd ever know it. They wouldn't see it. There's something there that is trying to spur you on, because it's there. All of that is within the whole of who we are, until we can begin to realize that, you know what, if I do go with that, even though nobody would ever know, I would know. And don't I know?
You would know.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And would you care?
Yeah. And then, even though only you do know, what if someone else found out?
Right.
And then, you know, would that bring us to our knees? Would that knock us off our high horse? I remember one time I needed to apologize to someone. Not that I was wrong. I was correct in my information. And I certainly was not correct in attitude of trying to correct it. And I was looking outside. It was a rainy day. And I was looking outside and trying to contemplate what I was going to say and how I was going to, and I just had this inward thought, because I really believe in making choices. And my inward thought said to me, says, well, Mona, you have two choices, but only two, And said, you can humble yourself and step down off of your high horse, or I'll knock you off. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll step down.
Yeah.
I'll step down. And I went to the person and I said, I had been convicted that I was rather rude and unpleasant in stating my position. And I ask you to forgive me for that attitude. And, they were very gracious. We talked about it a little later. Sometimes you don't ever get to talk about it.
That's right. That's right. And so sometimes you feel bad about bringing it up. You're nervous about bringing it up, because what if they think ill of me because I'm saying this? But I found that it's better to be humble and come up to them and admit that you were wrong or you overreacted.
Right.
People understand, and if they don't, well, they don't. Not everybody will, but for the most part, I think they will.
Right. And then if they do or if they don't, be okay with the fact that you made an attempt.
Right.
And if the situation ever comes up again, kind of look for it and hope for it and be prepared for it. If I have an opportunity to talk with that person again, what will I say? How will I handle it?
Yeah.
What will my demeanor be like? Because I find that life is very, very faithful to give us opportunities again and again.
It does. It really does. And that's what's so good about trying to make corrections and to do things. Because the first time you may not realize it when it's happening. You think about it after the fact, and you have to come back and bring the subject up and talk about it. But then the more you become aware of what you're doing, then you'll catch yourself in the action and you can stop it right there and then change your behavior right there. But it takes time. It takes practice. People kind of look at me when I tell them that, but because we've got all these habits that we've been doing for so many years that are just ingrained in us. If we're going to change the way we deal with people and the way we talk to people, we're not going to remember right away. We're going to go right back to those old habits because our brain has a way of finding the shortest path. And the shortest path is going to those old habits. Whereas when we're trying to make new habits, we have to learn to top it off and say, no. That's not what I want to do. That's not me anymore. I'm trying to do something differently. I'm trying to respond differently. But be okay with yourself by admitting that you're going back to your old habits and you're trying to change. You're trying to do something differently, and it's okay.
Yeah. And that, sometimes they say, yeah, but Jan, that's just you. That's just the way you are. You can't help it, But the thing of it is you did help it. That is why you are who you are now. It's because you did help it, because you did. Yeah. And sometimes we get they're so lucky. That's just the way they are. Well, no, not necessarily. It's because they've been prepared.
Right.
Because we have become prepared for those things that happen in life. Being aware of the fact that, there's going to be more clouds tomorrow. Will they have a silver lining or a dark lining?
Or do I have to sew one on there?
Right. And that into every life a little rain will fall. And the thing of it is, if a little rain doesn't fall, then we're begging for the rain to fall.
Right. Well, that rain, those negative things that happen, those are the opportunities for growth and for learning and for moving forward. Because if you think about it, if everything was perfect, if everything just happened exactly the way we wanted it to be, we would grow stagnant. There would be there wouldn't be a lot of excitement into it, because sometimes that negative stuff is there for a reason, and we just learn to take it in and learn how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, but we want our life to really rock, and it really can rock because of those tricky spots and those slippery patches and those challenges.
Right. Sometimes that's a way to slap us into place, right? Because
Right.
we
Yeah.
think that everything's going so well, and we're such a great person, and look how wonderful my life is, and everything's rosy and stuff, and then hey, wait, hang on a little bit, Just,
Yeah. Yeah.
there are other things going on here you need to notice.
Right. Right. And these things that we talk about, what they're stranger than fiction.
Right.
Because it really
like nobody could make that story up, right?
right. It's part of nature's checks and balances. That there may be times when we think we can't help ourselves, and that's precisely the moment when we really need to help ourselves.
Yeah.
To see things differently, to speak them differently, to think differently, to change our mind. Changing our mind is an inside job.
Yes. Even when people try to change it, it just doesn't work, does it?
Yeah. So we want to be successful. Well, it lies in clearly seeing who we are now and who we know deep down in our wisdom heart that we can be. And then putting in the effort to become that person. Again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing that we were each one born with gifts and talents and that we can do it. We have that power. It's that empowerment.
Yeah.
To overcome and to connect and reconnect.
Those negative things aren't necessarily a bad thing. That happens. That's all part of life. You can't go through life without the negative stuff happening too. And I can either overlook it, I can pretend like it's not there, or I can do something with it. But we do have a choice, but we need to be aware of what's happening.
Right. And in that awareness, even though our first thought, wanting to go the easy way, the quick way, the whatever, there's always wiggle room. There's always time for that pause so that a little more insight, a little more wisdom can come in, a little more, nurturing. And you just have to grab onto it and use it and then begin to look at and weigh the outcome. Whether the other person well, what about you? How do you feel with the way you handled it? Are you less embarrassed than you would have been had you gone another route?
So what do you think? Is it best to look at the positive side of everything that comes along? I know there's no one answer for anything, but as a general rule.
I think it's not denying what is, but it's looking for how that can be transformed.
Okay.
And what one word, what attitude, whatever can I contribute to it? Because it's the contribution of, it's not just one person that's going to fix things.
Right.
It's because the other person has to, or the other people, or the other whomever.
If I keep dwelling on the negative, we can allow that to ruin our day. We can allow that to ruin our life and set us down a wrong path if we allow the negative to sink in and dwell on that instead of trying to flip it around as to what can I learn.
Well, the secret and the law of attraction, that whatever we focus on is what we draw to us.
Right.
And so if we're looking at the negative, we're drawing the negative to us. And it's not that we don't acknowledge the fact that, well, this sucks. I mean, this stinks. It's terrible. It's not that we're denying it, because if we deny it, then we really go into delusion.
Right.
And live in a world that's not real.
Yeah.
It's acknowledging it, and it's back to my mantra of so what, now what?
Right.
It is what it is, now what, and how am I going to handle it? Am I going to fall apart, or am I going to stay more stable, more centered?
But I think that's a hard concept for people to get, that that if you keep focusing on the negative, you're bringing the negative energy and you're giving it power by focusing on the negative. And that, I mean, that's a huge concept to learn, because once you can put that aside and say, okay, I don't want to bring all this negative energy in. I don't want to focus on this negative. What, you know, how can I turn this around? How can I change this and move on with my life and move forward and learn from it?
And it's not magic.
No, it's not.
It is a mystery. As I've changed, when did it happen?
Right.
Well, Jan, this is an excellent topic. Thank you for helping us to look for the silver lining and realize that that can be a big blessing as well as one that's kind of dark. So thank everyone for watching and being here. And for the next 2 weeks, we're not going to be having a Greek the Week.
Oh, yeah, we are the next 2 weeks. It's the end of the month.
Okay. Well,
we are having it. Yeah, we are having it.
Destroy and uncreate that.
I know, you're moving too fast.
So we will let you know when we're going to be off later.
Labor Day and the week after Labor Day, we will not be having this. We will be here next week with another topic. So,
okay.
So thanks everybody for joining and for watching.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.